Oh, it is the biggest mix-up that you have ever seen. Me father, he was orange, and me mother, she was green. My father was an Ulsterman, proud Protestant was he. My mother was a Catholic girl from Sligo, away was she. They were married in two churches, lived happily enough, until the day that I was born and things got rather tough. Oh, it is the biggest mix-up that you have ever seen. My father, he was orange, and me mother, she was green. Baptized by Father Riley, I was rushed away by car, to be made a little orange man, my father's shining star. I was christened David Anthony, but still in spite of that, to my father I was William, while me mother called me Pat. Oh, it is the biggest mix-up that you have ever seen. My father, he was orange, and me mother, she was green. With mother every Sunday to mass I'd proudly stroll. Then after that the Orange Lodge would try to save my soul. For both sides tried to claim me, but I was smart enough, for I'd play the flute or play the harp, depending where I was. Oh, it is the biggest mix-up that you have ever seen. My father, he was orange, and me mother, she was green. Now when I'd sing those rebel songs, much to me mother's joy, me father would jump up and say, "Look here, would you, me boy? That's quite enough of that lot." He'd then toss me a coin, and he'd have me sing the Orange Flute or Heroes of the Boyne. Oh, it is the biggest mix-up that you have ever seen. My father, he was orange, and me mother, she was green. One day me ma's relations came round to visit me, just as my father's kinfolk were all sitting down to tea. We tried to smooth things over, but they all began to fight, and me being strictly neutral, I bashed everyone in sight. Oh, it is the biggest mix-up that you have ever seen. My father, he was orange, and me mother, she was green. Now my parents could never agree about my type of school. My learning was all done at home, that's why I'm such a fool. They both passed on, God rest 'em, but it left me caught between that awful colour problem of the orange and the green. Oh, it's the biggest mix-up that you'll have ever seen. My father, he was orange, and me mother, she was green. Howdy, folks. Goodness gracious, I am back after my long, extensive break. Dang it, I broke my streak! All my apes gone. St. Patrick's Day was a good day to take off. Most holy days, I feel even more emboldened to stand before my peers and preach, but Irish Day is for me. I missed it, though. I'm an ultra niche internet micro-celebrity. My 15 followers need me. Anyways, let's get into it. I wish I could make an underground city from Evangelion. It's been a decade and a half since I watched that, so I don't know. But the underground city is something that I remember is really cool, and the Angel's design was something that I remember, and that was really cool. And I'm glad I didn't watch that when I was an adult. I'm glad I watched that when I was like 15, 16. Because adults that watch that show are weird, man. Weird, strange. Stay away, actually, to be perfectly honest with you. That's the one thing that I really, really don't like about Mr. Medicare, is the fact that he's so into anime. I know why. He does it to pander. Duh. Suspicious amounts of money from people with anime accounts. And big maximum respect. In fact, mutual respect was earned between me and Noel when we both expressed how much we hated that. Like, I think that's actually the number one thing that got me on his radar when I first joined the site, is how much I hated the anime avatars and proclaimed them ruining the site. Oh well, everybody's entitled to free speech. It's just at certain points, you know, you gotta recognize that some people aren't really best to have around, right? And if you can ban people, you can lay down some laws, or at least keep it contained, right? Keep it all contained in the VTuber thread, and keep that as an exclusion zone, and prevent them from ever leaving that area, right? But Elon is doing ketamine and plunging the country into dumbness, so we're not going to be making any sort of underground geofronts or anything like that. Neo Geo Cities Evangel Lion. Some yeah. Did you know that there are huge sprawling networks of tunnels underneath Portland, Oregon? They're called the Shanghai tunnels, and that's when people would fall out in bars and then wake up bound and gagged, heading on a ship towards Shanghai to be slaves for the Chiang Kai-shek style of Chinese governance in the Wu area. I don't like the Wuis. The Yuanese are interesting. Let's go through them all real quick. The Miaos are awesome. The Ming around Nanjing, that's their specific area. It's all right, you know, mid. Xi, very interesting. Dali, very interesting. Talked about Dalians before. The Shun are hyper-aggressive Yuan role players, right? But yeah, I like Yue. Yue is around Canton and Shenzhen. And, yeah, that's all I remember off the top of my head. Yeah, a little Chinese tier list there to start us out. Disney pretty much proved on a small scale over the century that we can do just about anything. But we let ourselves be fooled into using our powers for entertainment instead of improvement, you see. And that's a big issue that's been consistently coming back to bite us over and over and over again. It is what it is, you know. You hope for the best. And prepare for the worst, but don't be one of those insane preppers that, like, use illogical preparation to problems that haven't manifested yet and think that, like, oh, I'll need 5 years, 10 years worth of food. Like, dude, if the lines around things get cut for that long, you're going to be dealing with a whole lot bigger problems than trying to find clean food, let me tell you. Anyways, moving on. The head writer of Courage the Cowardly Dog, David Cohen, passed away. Rest in peace to a real one, for real. Ah, such a good show. Such a good show. Now, people are lying about drones being the next generation of warfare, right? We've already hit a new generation of warfare that we're in right now, and that's the mass poisoning of people, the mass proliferation of poison, the silent but deadly biological warfare. And I'm not just talking about COVID, but it is part and parcel of it, that has been racking the entire world, especially here in America. Like, you got to be very careful with the food that you eat here in America, because if you eat the wrong foods that have been genetically modified to store poisons instead of be killed by them, then you can end up being very, 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 very sick, having all sorts of hormone problems. Like, at the end of the day, the extreme trauma of growing up in a time where people were getting their schools shot up by renegade, online groomed by Zionists, freaks, and the hormone disruption of our foods is one of the reasons why you can't really blame young people for acting weird. It's not their fault. Drones would literally be like the 7th generation of warfare, right? After PSYOPs, and after that, you know, chemical warfare that I just described. Mass chemical proliferation. We're in some deep cuts. Did you know car washes are the #1 money laundering operation in the Western Hemisphere right now? It used to be pizza. It used to be pizza spots when Operation Gladio was real big. We're moving some of those stay-behind armies that had generated, like, entire cancerous zones. We're plucking that cancer up and putting it in our big cities. Pizza spots. And a lot of those people, God bless them, a lot of those Italians, God bless them, have actually just gone to just making pizza. You know? They're happy to be out of it. A lot of the people in the mafia straight up said, like, things went very poorly after they assassinated Kennedy, and a lot of them were given opportunities to get out after that because things weren't going as planned. Promises were broken on the higher end, and, you know, that's when the covenant is violated. It is what it is, you know. Christ is King is being labeled as anti-Semitism, and it does have some history to it. Myself, I've always shied away from belting that one out. Instead, I say Christ is King of Kings and Lord of Lords with alternating uppercase and lowercase typing. The federal asset, Nicholas J. Fuentes, has done genuine damage to both that phrase, traditional Catholicism in general, and just young Catholic men and young men in general. They're called groypers. And they're on the spectrum. They're on the spectrum of the same exact sort of Elon tards, which are kind of on the farther end of the left-wing part of the spectrum, like with the techno-feudalists and the when you want to replace all your body, the I forgot the name for it, futurism, as opposed to the more conservative traditionalism. But they're on that same spectrum, that same graph. A very, very low aura, way down there at the bottom of that cube, the political cube. We normally call it the compass, but that's a 2D thing, right? So we're looking at left, right, authoritarian, libertarian, but you got to invert it and go low aura or high aura too to deal with, like, Macron, for instance, super low aura. The guy that slapped Macron, super high aura, right? Apparently that guy was a true centrist, because the guy that slapped Macron, because his political ideals were a whole big mismatched jumble, and it was great. That guy's a king. Dems quickly forgetting how Obama used the Patriot Act to declare war on Yemen and drone strike a Yemeni preacher and his entire family is a little upsetting. Even violating due process in the United States. Anwar al-Awlaki and his entire family. I can't understate how evil Obama was. I can't understate how Obama created the position that Doge now occupies extrajudicially. He created Elon Musk himself, because I genuinely believe he loves humiliating white people because he feels as if white people held him down. But it's very likely that he just experienced some form of MK Ultra, some form of a CIA operation that was grooming him specifically to think a certain way and upset things only at a certain point. The apple cart up top was not touched. Not one bit. However, the recent Gaza massacre of people in camps with firebombs, that's concerning. On second glance, Trump was in a golf tournament and Elon in D.C. when this went down, right? So the fact that he spontaneously started involving himself in South African politics, Trump, the special designation of attacks on Tesla dealerships as terrorism, the increase in war after he came in on promises of stopping the Ukraine conflict, which Elon is heavily involved in supplying the intelligence systems for, and saving the Gazans, which you can find pictures of Netanyahu and Elon chumming it up. Like many people, like the guy is like Epstein, he's got his fingers in all sorts of pots. That seems to be the Mossad, modus operandi. Not to mention that awful AI video taken of that was generated. Like, who do you think generated that for Trump? Come on now. And why was there? It's just weird stuff in there, man. It's very strange, in my opinion. Still, America's not some podunk backwash like Argentina. Musk has lost $125 billion since January. And I've been saying, sell your Tesla stocks, guys. This is, and hopefully it didn't go, oh, this person just hates Elon Musk and all the good things that he's doing for the country. USAID is a genuine cancer that has spread cancer all over the world. And, like, it forms gang networks because the people getting it aren't poor people, but, like, shell companies operated by gangsters, and their children are like Uday Hussein or El Chapo's son, and they use violence as their main currency because they already have a constant stream of high income, people working for them, etc., from the United States. It's going to be a really, really good thing if that actually goes through, but I've yet to see any genuine, like, here we cut USAID down to the bone, and, with this we'll save enough money to start offsetting the debt and the deficit. I don't see a lot of that. And Trump's not much of a deficit or debt hawk, right? He's not one of the Tea Party not one of the Tea Party guys, but he's not somebody who well, let's just put a pin in that right now, because it's hard to tell what Trump's really up to. I hear rumors that Musk has been downgraded recently due to the entire economy just tanking due to Elon's direct choices. And it's like when you actually study what's going on, I hate to be on this topic again and constantly harping on it, but you actually study what he's doing. He's giving himself tremendous contracts for, what FEMA used to take care of for people. He's selling electric vehicles to the post office while cutting a lot of workers so that, oh, gosh, it's a complex and heartbreaking thing. And I'll get into some of that a little later in this episode. Okay, so let's move on from that for a little bit. Vaporware people know this already, that you don't need anything as long as you have your constituents' hearts. You don't need money, you don't need anything, as long as you have the hearts and the ears of the people. But our area around here is actually getting better just recently. And I think, see, when Andrew Tate first touched down in Florida, there was a terrific amount of demonic, and I hate to say this because it makes me sound crazy, but it's true. You could hear it these days. You could audibly hear it these days out on the streets and stuff like that, and the way that people are behaving because they're so loud and so deaf. Of demonic energy peaking up real big. And I'm not sure if they were visiting or if they were activated or what. But then the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, kicked him out. And by chasing him out with a threat of, we're going to investigate you, which an innocent man wouldn't run away from. Right. But, he went on Candace Owens' show and spilled the beans that, I delete my phone every single night. You're not going to get any info on me. And it's just like, why are you deleting you? Never mind. He's actually really proud of his stuff, and that's something I'm going to get into in a little bit about the Zionists and how they operate. His father was a CIA guy, so it's all in the singular bubble. It's a singular philosophy, right? So yeah, our area is getting much better. You can feel it, you can see it, you can witness it with your own two eyes and your own two ears. You can genuinely tell that things have gotten significantly better after Governor DeSantis made that call. And sometimes it does make me wonder, should I have been so mean to DeSantis over the course of the time where he was running for president, running against Trump and stuff like that? Could he have been maybe a better pick? Because one of the big things is Trump will legitimately take a stand against Israel, whereas Ron DeSantis has pretty much proclaimed from day one that he sold out to Israel, which is just the omnipresent cancer just killing our country, stage 4 cancer in our country is Zionism and its effects. But I still have tons of hope for Trump to turn things around and then go through another downstage. But he lives like a natural man. I've described this before in the podcast, is that, or I guess it would be called streams, since podcasts are usually a pod of people talking. But regardless, he acts naturally. As strange as that sounds, unnatural is Obama. Everything is great for my constituents. Everything's always bad for my enemies, which is just the attitude that people were convinced to have. Ups and downs is the natural part of life, and you shouldn't flee from that. You should embrace that natural pulse. It shouldn't be embraced on the deaths of innocent women and children, which is just it's not us doing it. It's the deeply immoral IDF, which is a conscription network that would quite literally train people and weed people out in the same time. To be in this new two-tiered system. A guy on Alex Jones explained this very well the other day, and it got into other communities, and people started to talk about it. That they're making a two-tiered system of immoral Zionists and regular Jews in Israel. I've been into my theories about all this before, about how Zionism uses Jews as a human shield. That would be one way of maintaining that human shield, which they wouldn't need if AI was really so advanced. It's just not. AI isn't saving Musk. He's probably getting found out by his boss that he's lying all the time. Trump's getting pissed off, comes back from his golf tournament, everything's a wreck. He says this is probably going to be his last golf tournament, because he's got to work. He's got to stay focused. The only issue around here is that the space industry is consistently taking advantage of public utilities in a way that NASA never did. And they're doing it, SpaceX, as if they were a public company. But unlike public companies, they don't have to do any work to replace said utilities in any way, shape, or form, even tangentially through other organizations that are in the public sector. Which is how they save money. That and the Lockheed Martin missile factory they plan on building up in Titusville. Because we need more somehow. But at the same time, I lived in Titusville when I first came here, before I moved to Merritt Island. And Titusville is, it's gone really downhill. It's like the most dilapidated part of our entire area. And so they're gentrifying it with Warfare, which is the biggest welfare spring in our country. The singular, like 95% of all welfare, which is just government cuts you a check. You know, you got recruiters saying, hey, don't you want a new car and stuff like that? Like, it's, it's wild. That's one of the reasons why people like Sam Hyde say just go ahead and take advantage of welfare. But for my personal pride, I don't. And I don't have to worry about things that I've set up with the welfare money getting taken away from me and those things collapsing. I can say whatever I want. Like DeSantis quite literally did ban criticism of Israel. He could actually go after people's various public strings, which I have none. And I've paid for stuff in cash for most of my life. Hey. Cash is king, baby. Flamethrowers are the ultimate dumb guy weapon. They were designed for clearing caves and bunkers. They also, when they're used on the battlefield, have an extremely high friendly fire rate and also have extremely high malfunction rate. And it's funny, one of the first things that really ticked me off about Elon Musk is when he went on Joe Rogan's show and he started showing off his flamethrower and stuff, and it's just like, that is a dumb weapon, man. I got respect for rifles, I got respect for shotguns. Pistols are a little more sloppy, you know what I'm saying? But they're meant to be small, right? And are meant to be the greatest weapons in the world. Like your typical Glock is actually one of the best things that you could get your hands on because it's just designed for simplicity and ease of access. Which is one of the reasons why I'm not really a fan of pistols, is because I don't think there should be extreme ease of access. You should plan several steps ahead to not go into a war zone, right? Stay out of Chicago. We're at a solar maximum, and all of God's creation is undergoing the pangs of agony while our ancestors worked extremely hard. Well, which our ancestors worked extremely hard. They worked extensively and prodigiously to elucidate to us in various ways. Like, really, truly, we're meant to, collectively store up for things like the solar maximum, and then when things calm down a little bit, we get back up, replenish our areas, reseed the meadows so that we can get more mead and the bees can be happy and healthy. But now toxicity is raining from the sky. It's not just acid rain. You got mass proliferation of herbicides and insecticides and fungicides, which is not good, in the water cycle, and it rains back down on us with microplastics. Not good. Zionists genuinely seem to get off on hurting others. That is the main wellspring for sadistic culture in the U.S. since the Masons have dropped back in the 90s, and it is way more advanced than anything the Masons have ever done when it comes to, as I'll describe at the very end of this episode, there's a specific methodology for the new type of people that have started to appear after the 80s and 90s, with the hyper-accessibility of chemistry. And, regardless of how short-sighted and unwise those plans might be, this also explains the obsession with money, which is only a tool for short-term gain, and how even before Zionism was invented, they would fall to sexual depravity so easily, like the rape of Nancy Fagan by a Frankist, and the start of that same incest orgy cult in Poland of the Frankists. Hollywood in general, Jeffrey Epstein, they don't seem to have many qualms about that. And the Phoenicians way back when would sell pornographic idols. You see. They were very advanced pornographic idols. Carved, and they would sell them. And those are that's archaeology that has been recovered today. The Israelis tend to commit atrocities around Ramadan too, which is also Lent. It takes a lifetime to grow a mother tree, and a week to destroy her. Many such cases. Do not forget this wisdom, because it applies across the board. Polycules and Renaissance fairs. Low aura neo-paganism. Sorry, Ren Fair guys. You guys are closer to mid. Polycules is definitely way down there at the bottom. Old Macduff, who grows orchids. High aura. High aura. Now let me tell you something about women. Something about women. If you had a bad experience with women, don't judge 50% of the planet for it. A lot of gay guys had mothers who were victims of the culture. Like the McDonald's review that said her child's chicken nuggets were missing, so he'd just starve. That woman is a victim of her own laziness and the ease and access of car culture, fast food culture, in all the ways that it makes us lazier and lazier, bit by bit by bit. You know, the era of intense entitlement is pretty well summed up in our culture. It's where workers are treated like garbage, why people don't respect animals, why sound and light pollution is so high that there's an arms race being pushed by the deaf and the blind, why they're literally draining up water from the aquifers, and why billion-dollar companies consistently allow taxpayers to foot the bill. You know, nobody would complain if it wasn't so parasitic. Everybody would be very happy to be part of the rising tide that lifts all ships, but it's a sinkhole. It's an Abaddon, bottomless pit. And we're watching it widen and widen and widen and pull in everything around it, you see. It's not something to celebrate, I'm sorry. A local retired police chief just got the $22,000 raise in his consulting contract as a retiree. He doesn't do anything. That's in my local area. But tell me more about how Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, you fetal alcohol syndrome hair-plugged jackass. I mean, the damage that he's already done and his little methed-out Zoomers have done to Social Security systems they might well cripple the system for a long time, but we'll see. We'll see, because as I said, Trump was very, very sure about, like, I do not want to cut, like, a program for a constituency that is 80% on my side. And, like, I don't think he's going to turn on that. I think that Elon Musk is lying to him using AI, and he is manipulating him into doing things that he wouldn't normally do. You know, Lula da Silva, the president of Brazil, he's actually cutting taxes for those that make less than $5,000 a year. That's the reverse of Malay, right? Instead of cutting everything that the society kind of needs to sustain itself, from welfare to firefighters, everything in between, instead allowing people who don't contribute much to the tax base at all because they're so poor to stack up a little bit of extra money. That's smart. God bless Brazil. I hope they find a way to, like, even if it requires to do some nasty sort of low aura centrist stuff, I really do hope Brazil manages to defend their borders. Because if we invade Venezuela and we get back involved heavily in Bolivia, and then Brazil's next, straight up. I don't know what's going on in Colombia, but I don't think they'd ever get directly invaded by the U.S. Soft power is enough to pacify Colombia. They work for us willingly. Well, not us, but, you know, the U.S. It's so sad that most 2x4s are actually closer to 1.5x4s. Why would they lie to me like that, man? Is there a better prop comedian than Eric Andre? And don't you dare say Carrot Top. Don't you dare say Carrot Top. Southerners fly off the handle about hogs. Northerners fly off the handle about deers, and British people, they fly off the handle about foxes, and sometimes squirrels. I've seen it. Weird how that works. Who's your favorite comedian? Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Punky Skunk, Flumpy Flute, Chuck E. Cheese? You know, while we're on cartoons, Alegria is a lot like AI, right? If I ever see either of those cheaply made simulacras of talent attached to any concept, my disgust sensitivity activates, and I start to push that away without even, like, checking it, right? It'd be somebody that I respect. If they attach Alegria or AI to their stuff, it activates my disgust sensitivity, and I start, you know, getting anxious, if you will. There needs to be a new name for this 2D theosophy. I call it new science. A lot of people call it new science, the science of lies. From the left to the right, right? So you got the bioscience people, you got the AI people, and all they seem to specialize in is manipulating people to use them as test subjects. That seems to be the specialty for the new science. Seems to me that the enemy of today is divorced from culture, creed, and covenant. Indeed, from reality itself. The pseudoscience that takes you away from the wisdom of your ancestors is a poison chalice. And remember, the misery of being a lying manipulator does indeed override the temporary pleasure of winning some imaginary race and forcibly overriding your instincts to avoid worldly pain. So, when things get rough, just remember it's part of the cycle. And to hope and pray and send your prayers up, because that is an incredibly important energy that people do not, like, for both pragmatic and spiritual reasons, people undercount prayer. They really, really do. We'll need to count on prayer a little bit more, even if they feel like it's a little antiquated, right? All right, y'all. Good to be back. Cheers.